I think the problem in this instance has to do more with the fact that on the Russian side, there is a perception or a feeling from President Putin that he has not yet achieved his goals in this war, not his minimalist territorial goals, which are to take over the remaining parts of the four regions that Russia has, sort of supposedly annexed, nor has he achieved his maximalist goals, which would be a fully subservient Ukraine. And if he hasn't achieved his goals, it's going to take a lot of pressure to get him to back down. And that pressure is not something that Trump is willing to do, given the potential ripple effects for Brent and for gasoline prices in the U.S. that would come with those types of sanctions.
Andrew, I want to take a step back and talk about the Trump-Putin call, and you would probably agree with this, right? I mean, the guy's spinning it as a concession, but at the end of the day, he really didn't give any ground at all. And let's move on now to the Trump-Zelensky call. What I found interesting was the president apparently pitched the U.S. control over Zaporizhzhia, the Ukrainian power plant there, right? The Ukrainians said, okay, interesting idea, but it's probably not going to work technically. What is the reasoning behind that? Why would it not work, or is this a good idea?
There are many things. We tend to take Trump very seriously at Signum because, he is no fool, and he is often much more strategic than people give him credit for. But there are a few things that are essentially just too far-fetched for me to take seriously, and this is one of them. Part of the reason, by the way, to begin with, is the fact that Ukraine doesn't actually physically control the nuclear power plant at this stage, and it is doubtful to me that Russia would just hand it over to the U.S. That's one of many other problems.
Okay, I mean, where do you think Trump going with this? They talked about Zaporizhzhia. That doesn't seem to be, seems to be, a dead end. Apparently, the administration wants to broaden the ceasefire from energy infrastructure. Okay, maybe Zaporizhzhia doesn't work to the Black Sea, and then eventually to a total ceasefire. Is that the path you see ahead, and how realistic is it?
So I think that is indeed President Trump's goal. I think yesterday's call, or the call that he had with President Putin a couple days, yesterday, has probably led him to realize how difficult this will be to achieve. And so, to answer your question, going forward, I would keep an eye on whether or not the president keeps talking about Ukraine, or does he start minimizing the rhetoric. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him talk about other issues a lot more, perhaps Iran, perhaps North Korea, perhaps going back to trade, perhaps the domestic agenda, which hasn't been getting a lot of attention, and sort of minimize the Ukraine issue if he realizes that it's essentially going nowhere. Now, to answer your question in tangible terms, I think the landing zone here is essentially that we're not going to get a deal on Ukraine. But what we could have is a new relationship between the U.S. and Russia that leads to deals on other issues like Iran, like North Korea.